Volume 1, Book 4, number 171. Narrated by Ibn Sirin. I said to Abda, I have some of the hair of the Prophet which I got from Anas or from his family. Abida replied, no doubt if I had a single hair of that it would have been dearer to me than the whole world and whatever is in it. Volume 1, Book 4, number 172. Narrated by Anas. When Allah's apostle got his head shaved, Abu Talha was the first to take some of his hair. Volume 1, Book 4, number 173. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. Allah's apostle said, if a dog drinks from the utensil of any one of you, it is essential to wash it 7 times. Volume 1, Book 4, number 174. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, a man saw a dog eating mud from the severity of thirst. So, that man took a shoe, and filled it with water and kept on pouring the water for the dog till it quenched its thirst. So Allah approved of his deed and made him to enter paradise. And narrated Hamza bin Abdullah, my father said, during the lifetime of Allah's apostle, the dogs used to urinate, and pass through the mosques, come and go. Nevertheless they never used to sprinkle water on it, urine of the dog. Volume 1, Book 4, number 175. Narrated by Adi bin Hatim. I asked the Prophet about the hunting dogs, and he replied, if you let loose, with Allah's name, your tamed dog after a game and it hunts it, you may eat it, but if the dog eats of that game, then do not eat it because the dog has hunted it for itself. I further said, sometimes I send my dog for hunting and find another dog with it. He said, do not eat the game, for you have mentioned Allah's name only on sending your dog and not the other dog. Volume 1, Book 4, number 176. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. Allah's apostle said, a person is considered in prayer as long as he is waiting for the prayer in the mosque, as long as he does not do hadith. A non-Arab man asked, O Abi Hurairah, what is hadith? I replied, it is the passing of wind from the anus. That is one of the types of hadith. Volume 1, Book 4, number 177. Narrated by Abbas bin Taman. My uncle said, the Prophet said, one should not leave his prayer unless he hears sound or smells something. Volume 1, Book 4, number 178. Narrated by Ali. I used to get emotional urethral discharges frequently and felt shy to ask Allah's apostle about it. So I requested Al-Miqdad bin al-Aswad to ask the Prophet about it. Al-Miqdad asked him and he replied, one has to perform ablution after it. Volume 1, Book 4, number 179. Narrated by Zayd bin Khalid. I asked Uthman bin Affan about a person who engaged in intercourse but did no discharge. Uthman replied, he should perform ablution like the one for our ordinary prayer, but he must wash his penis. Uthman added, I heard it from Allah's apostle. I asked Ali Az Zubair, Talha and Ubay bin Kabi about it, and they, too, gave the same reply. This order was cancelled later on and taking a bath became necessary for such cases. Volume 1, Book 4, number 180. Narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's apostle sent for an Ansari man who came with water dropping from his head. The Prophet said, perhaps we have forced you to hurry up, haven't we? The Ansari replied, yes. Allah's apostle further said, if you are forced to hurry up during intercourse, or you do not discharge, then ablution is due on you. This order was cancelled later on, i.e. one has to take a bath. Volume 1, Book 4, number 181. Narrated by Osama bin Zaid. When Allah's apostle departed from Arafat, he turned towards a mountain pass where he answered the call of nature. After he had finished, I poured water and he performed ablution, and then I said to him, O Allah's Apostle, will you offer the prayer? He replied, the Musalla, place of the prayer, is ahead of you, in Al-Muzdalifa. Volume 1, Book 4, Number 182. Narrated by Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah. I was in the company of Allah's Apostle on one of the journeys, and he went out to answer the call of nature, and after he finished, I poured water and he performed ablution. He washed his face, forearms, and passed his wet hand over his head and over the 2 leather socks. Volume 1, Book 4, Number 183. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas, that he stayed overnight in the house of Maimuna, the wife of the Prophet, his aunt. He added, I lay on the bed, cushioned transversely, while Allah's Apostle and his wife lay in the lengthwise direction of the cushion. Allah's Apostle slept till the middle of the night, either a bit before or a bit after it, and then woke up, rubbing the traces of sleep off his face with his hands. He then recited the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Imran, got up and went to a hanging water skin. He then performed the ablution from it, and it was a perfect ablution, and then stood up to offer the prayer. I, too, got up and did as the Prophet had done. Then I went and stood by his side. He placed his right hand on my head and caught my right ear and twisted it. He prayed 2 rakat, then 2 rakat, and 2 rakat, and then 2 rakat, and then 2 rakat, and then 2 rakat, separately 6 times, and finally 1 rak'ah, the witr. Then he lay down again in the bed till the mu'adhin came to him, whereupon the Prophet got up, offered a 2 light rakat prayer, and went out and led the Fajr prayer. Volume 1, Book 4, Number 184. Narrated by Asma bint Abu Bakr. I came to Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, during the solar eclipse. The people were standing and offering the prayer, and she was also praying. I asked her, what is wrong with the people? She beckoned with her hand towards the sky and said, Subhan Allah. I asked her, is there a sign? She pointed out, yes. So I, too, stood for the prayer till I fell unconscious, and later on I poured water on my head. After the prayer, Allah's Apostle praised and glorified Allah and said, just now I have seen something which I never saw before at this place of mine, including paradise and hell. I have been inspired, and have understood, that you will be put to trials in your graves, and these trials will be like the trials of Ad-Dajjal, or nearly like it. The sub-narrator is not sure of what Asma said. Angels will come to every one of you and ask, what do you know about this man? A believer will reply, he is Muhammad, Allah's Apostle, and he came to us with self-evident truth and guidance. So we accepted his teaching, believed and followed him. Then the angels will say to him to sleep in peace, as they have come to know that he was a believer. On the other hand, a hypocrite or a doubtful person will reply, I do not know, but heard the people saying something, and so I said the same. Volume 1, Book 4, Number 185. Narrated by Yahya al-Mazini. A person asked Abdullah bin Zayd, who was the grandfather of Amr bin Yahya, can you show me how Allah's Apostle used to perform ablution? Abdullah bin Zayd replied in the affirmative and asked for water. He poured it on his hands and washed him twice. Then he rinsed his mouth thrice and washed his nose with water thrice by putting water in it and blowing it out. He washed his face thrice, and after that he washed his forearms up to the elbows twice, and then passed his wet hands over his head from its front to its back and vice versa, beginning from the front and taking them to the back of his head up to the nape of the neck, and then brought him to the front again from where he had started, and washed his feet, up to the ankles. Volume 1, Book 4, Number 186. Narrated by Amr. My father saw Amr bin Abi Hassan asking Abdullah bin Zayd about the ablution of the Prophet. Abdullah bin Zayd asked for earthenware pot containing water and in front of them performed ablution like that of the Prophet. He poured water from the pot over his hand and washed his hands thrice, and then he put his hands in the pot and rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out with 3 handfuls of water. Again he put his hand in the water and washed his face thrice and washed his forearms up to the elbows twice, and then put his hands in the water and then passed them over his head by bringing them to the front and then to the rear of the head once, and then he washed his feet up to the ankles.